are live. Hello, hello. Greetings. Welcome to Oracle Divination Network. This is a special day of Labor Day, and we have postponed our class in lieu of the holiday. I want to welcome each and every one of you and say that this particular feature is dedicated to my NFL brothers. And it is NFL brothers, you must take a stand for your race. I am very proud of Kaplan for taking a stand, but we need to step in and talk about the plans that you have to organize yourself and not just to haphazardly take a stand on the field. Because a lot of you I see are disorganized. Some of you don't know whether to hug each other, to raise a fist, or to walk off the field. And we have to talk about organization. You are very intelligent men for doing what you do, and may God bless you for having the right heart to do the right thing for your race of people. Yes, your African American brothers are suffering out there in every major metropolitan city. They are suffering very seriously because they don't have employment and they don't have jobs. So that means that a lot of them are on the streets. In every major metropolitan city you go in, you can see them on the streets, and they are in need of funds to live off of, as well as to meet their everyday obligation. And when you see those young men, NFL players, I know your heart goes out to them because they are your race and your people. You have gone on TV, NFL players, and talked about the millions of dollars in contracts that you're under. Let me say this much. I am an athletic, connected person. As a matter of fact, I grew up in a household with athletes in my home. And it was said that we have to watch out for our brother's keeper, and that athlete would be the ticket to help a few of us get to college, and it did. As a matter of fact, in our household, when one of my brothers was granted with an option to go off to college, he put in his contracted deal that he must take one of his sisters with him, and he did. He took one of my other sister with him as he went off to college, and her tuition was paid for just as well as his. That's a commitment. And that's what Black folks have to do in order to get out of the hood or get out of an economic status where we want to help our own. We must reach back and do something for our own. Now, if all of this taking a knee and raising a fist is only for outward show, and you're not going back in your African American communities and making a difference with the lifestyle of your people. If you see that most of your Black cousins, nephews, and friends are out of work, then start a fund. Start a fund that will create an opportunity for these young men to go back and to create an opportunity where they can acquire a trade. Now, let me zone into the fact that I know LeBrons James has just recently opened a school, which is very good. I know you're young, LeBrons, and sometimes young men don't really understand that we must have a African-centered education to make it effective, because so many schools have not focused on African-centered, and they've been run by Caucasian people, and they've not addressed the issue for Black boys. So this is one thing you might want to zone into, LeBron James. You might want to look at the fact that, is this going to help those Black boys stay off the streets, get a trade and get a skill? Or are we going to orientate them to the customs and traditions of Caucasian men and women, which they may reject? As you know, there's a lot of African American boys who are being pushed out of the schools. I mean, pushed out. and given suspensions and expulsions where they can't come back. And that's how a lot of them end up on the streets, and they're begging because they don't have a college, they don't have a high school diploma, and they don't have work experience, and they don't know what else to do but to beg. And sometimes that's better than robbing and kidnapping and stealing. But we have to do something about it. You NFL brothers who got the dough, you got the trinkets. And the reason why I say that, because we were committed in our household when I came up, that if one of us had made it in the industry, that we would help one another. And we have done that. Me being a 50-yard dash runner and being involved in running, I got involved also in my adult life in being a referee, where I held a contract to referee children in basketball. And I was committed to that opportunity, just as my brother who went off to school was committed to playing basketball at Western Michigan University, along with carrying my sister with him, who could also get a degree at the expense of the recruiter. Now, what am I saying to you NFL players? I want to speak to Kaplan here. Kaplan, I admired what you did, and it took a lot of courage to do what you did. I even talked to the teachers and asked them to take a knee with you, because that was the thing to do at the time. Now, I've gone a little further and looked into this national anthem. I know that you're doing this because you want to stand with the brothers and sisters who are being abused and who have police brutality that is bringing down our race. I understand that that was the reason you took your knee. But let's look into the lyrics of this national anthem. Maybe we have forgotten something. Maybe we haven't looked at the fact that this song may need to be retired. Maybe it's not an appropriate song and it needs to be retired. Have we looked at the standards and the lyrics of the song? Does it do the African American justice? Does it speak to our occasion, or does it speak negative to our Mayafa during the time we were abused and beaten and whipped? Does it address the whippings and beatings, and does it accentuate on the negative? If it does, then maybe our efforts should be around eliminating the last standard of the lyrics that does us no justice and continue to incriminate us and put us back in a slave man and woman status. Maybe that's what we should be attacking. Now, I know the NFL is saying, get on the field, start playing, you're desecrating our flag. It's not about the flag. It's about what the flag represents. And if that song of the national anthem has incriminated us, then by God, we should have a hearing on the lyrics of the song and be able to depict the negative lyrics that have destroyed us and continue to destroy us and continue to carry our Ma'afa on, which is something that the Jews would never let happen. They would never let their Holocaust continue to hunt them in a song that talks about their brutalness and how they went down as being beaten. Yes, we need to have structure. So those men who are going down on their knee, not knowing what's going to happen afterwards, have got to be organized. And Kaplan, you can do us one better. You can start a society to organize them to look closely at the lyrics of the song and have the song retired. Do something that will be beneficial to all of the people of color who have been struck down with the words and the lyrics of the song. Let's retire the song, and if we cannot retire the song, at least blot out the standards in the song that desecrate us and continue to hunt us and our ancestors who were beaten and who were sometimes killed. Now, NFL players, I know you know that there's a lot of brothers out of work. Oh, so many brothers out of work from one metropolitan area to the next. And I know you have enough funds to create an organization that could get these young men off the streets. If you really want to make a difference, start a fund to address these young men. They're not on the streets because they want to be. They don't have high school diplomas. A lot of them get pushed out through expulsion. Some of them may be in the lower classes where they're mainstream for special ed, and they've been expelled. And now their families say, get out and get a job, and they don't know how to go in and fill out an application when they're being rejected on every account because they don't have a high school diploma. If you wanted to do something richly with your funds, you can start an actual school for completion for these black men, giving them a meal a day, giving them a chance to work at the sweat of their brows in this school with you, retraining them, picking your brothers up off the ground. Because by golly, by the grace of God, NFL players who come from the inner city, there goes you. Or one of your brothers or cousins could fall prey to being victimized, to being on the streets and being homeless. You've got to understand you've got to work smart and not hard. Right now, they're trying to depict all of the NFL players as if they have desecrated their country and fallen prey to discriminating themselves amongst the other players. But that's not so. I know you want to help. I know you want to do something grand that will go down in history, and it will. But you have money. You are smart. You can organize yourself. You don't have to look like the criminal. You are the victim. Your brothers who are standing on the street begging for a dollar, they are the victims. And I know you have a heart for them, because when you see them, you see yourself in their eyes. And I know, LeBrons, you didn't put that school together just because you wanted to do it for show. You really want to do something for your people, I know. And you're young at heart. There's a lot that a lot of you don't know. Now, shall I say, go to those conscious-minded people in the community and attend some of their meetings and find out just what it is your Black African-American communities need. How can you best service them? How can you go to those schools and find out who those young men are who are off on expulsions and create an opportunity for them to go to some private school? Then mentor them. Work with them until they finish their high school diploma and help them to transition. Most of our problems that you see on the streets are transitioning problems. No one and no family member plans for the transition of that young man. And if you don't plan by default, there will be a plan given to you. And that is why you see so many black males on the street. They have been pushed out of the school system, pushed through the cracks, no longer able to return to school, and then they hit the streets. And then that's when the trouble starts. They're not out there because they want to be out there. They're out there because they have nowhere else to turn to. But you NFL players, you're an example for our African American community. You stand up high and you've taken vows and you've made a commitment. You are a fine example for our African American youth who've fallen through the cracks and who are on their backs now and need guidance from you. They don't need your pity, but they need opportunities. And there are very few opportunities out there for a young man or young woman who has no high school diploma. As a teacher, I can speak on behalf of them. because I've advocated for a lot of African American students who've gotten pushed out under Title 20 and who could not return back to school. The streets were waiting for them, just waiting for them to either introduce them to gangs, to drugs, or to street life and to robbing and killing as a way of life. But you can help change that today, NFL players. Not only by taking a knee, but by embracing a mentee or mentor program to help these young men in your communities where you have grown up in, or your family's community, and you can develop something that will represent something greater than taking a knee. You can name it after taking a knee if you want to, but you can do your best service by pulling them out of the financial state that they will permanently be in, a permanently underclass. Now, I have a heart for these young men from international to state and urban settings where they are asking for $1 or $2. They're not hitting someone over the head and beating someone down. I often try to extend that $1 to them if it will feed them or get them off the streets. But we can do better than that. We can create a haven for those young boys, an opportunity for them to sweat by the sweat of their brows and work their way through getting their high school diploma. Now, LeBrons, now you got gym shoes that you're trying to sell and you're marketing. And I know about these things because, as I told you, I was involved in athletic programs, even overseas. My husband and I managed baseball teams and basketball leagues and had my son involved in basketball as well and helping him through to go internationally to play on the German leagues overseas. So I'm all familiar with athletic arenas. And what I want to basically let you know is that we would not have this problem of officers desecrating our black men if there was more respect. And there's too many young men that are being desecrated on the streets. And I know it affects you NFL players. It has to, because you see your eyes in the eyes of those black men on the streets, because they're you and you are them. We are each other's keeper. And you're making tons of money that you can do a little bit more with than feel sorry for the brothers on the street. Let's not just feel sorry. Let's create a haven that we can address their joblessness and their uneducated position that they find themselves in. Most young men who come out of special ed, they don't want that to happen. When they come out of special ed after 16 years that they put in and come out with a certificate that carries no weight, where they cannot go to any company and apply with that certificate, it's only a certificate of completion. If you want to make a change, NFL players, go into these special ed departments and help me to decipher those brothers who might have been put in the special education department appropriately and who should be in a language program to address their inability to read. Then we can make some changes that affect the football field and affect the city and the country and the nation. On this Labor Day, I pray that every NFL player gets a chance to see this tape, because I think that there's more that you can do to offer your assistance for the status that we see our African American brothers in and that we found them in. They're in a desecrated place right now, and I know their hearts cry out to you. That is why you found it necessary, Kaplan, to take a knee on their behalf, because you want to show your concern about what is really wrong in the African American community. It's already documented that the incomes of the African Americans are going to be far lower than any of that of a Caucasian. Some of these young men may not ever get a job, but we can change that. We can give them stipends and give them some honorable work to do so that they can pull themselves up by the bootstraps with your help, NFL. Now, Kaplan, if they've taken away every opportunity for you to work, start a non-for-profit organization to help your brothers to brother. And I guarantee you, you will find men coming from all professions of life to assist and aid you in your plight. If you were intended to do something great and addressing the black brothers on the street, then don't stop at just taking a knee. Move farther and develop your corporation to express that which you have intended to do, and you have affected the nation around the world with your taking a knee. Now go a step further. Take a knee to incorporate yourself on behalf of your mission statements to do for your brothers and to help your race. Because we are suffering right now. We are suffering. There are many of us that don't have a meal tonight or a place to lay their heads down. If me being a teacher could go through the struggling that our brothers and sisters gone through, and they've always told me, get an education. Well, an education is not enough. It's not enough. When they're taking the land from you and the income base for you, you could find yourself 2 paychecks from the welfare line. And most of them have fallen prey to this. And it isn't all of their fault. And Kaplan, I know you feel this in your heart. That's why you've challenged the system and stepped out, even if it could possibly cause you to be disconnected from employment, which it has. Now, employ yourself by becoming self-employed and watch the brothers come to you to aid and assist you in your plight. They won't leave you out there alone. There are plenty of them that are educated, that are out there on them streets, that have talents and skills that can help you to organize your non-for-profit or for-profit organization where you're going to help your race. Because it's been said that too many NFL players are not doing enough to help their race. Too many of them are turning a deaf ear and a jaundiced eye to what they see in these urban cities and how they see their family members and their race of people on the street, living off the streets. Now, if you've got all this money to make a gym shoe, dedicate a pair of gym shoes to each family and pick them up, because dignity is what we as a race must maintain. But we lose our dignity when we see one of us struggling and cannot make it and is on the streets and on their hard luck. There goes us as well. The dignity of our people will give us equality. And remember, our ancestors talked about equality, equality for all. And Cassius Clay even knew that it was vital that he should stand with the people. He suffered much and went to prison because he did not want to give up on his race. And in the end, he was exonerated, just like you're going to be exonerated, Captain. You will not go down as a negative foe, but you will go down in history as a man that has a heart that cautioned other brothers on the team to stand with you, not in fear, but in dignity, for the dignity of the lives that were taken on the street needlessly. Nobody cries for those young men whose lives were taken. And Kaplan, you had a heart to acknowledge them and that they were not free. and that some of them were living their lives in bondage while you've been given exceptional abundance. And some of you other brothers, LeBrons, you know about the inner city. And I know that it tags at you at night about what can you do, how much more can you give to your race to bring them up by the bootstrap. There's a lot more you can do, LeBrons. Trust me, brother. Get together with Kaplan and unite yourselves and start the organization that will address our conditions in these inner cities. Do not turn a deaf ear or a jaundiced eye to what is happening in our inner cities, because it will come back to haunt you. Trust me, it will. I admire the fact that Brother Jenkins stood with you, and I hope Brother Jenkins can not only stand, but he can get with LeBrons and Kaplan to make a difference in a corporation that will address those brothers that are on the streets. Let's clean up that situation, and let's find someone to go out on the inner city and call these young men to a special meeting where you could speak to them. And when you speak to them, you will touch their hearts. And whatever you've given them to do, whatever work you've given them to do, I believe they will be ready to work by the sweat of their brows and to pull themselves up by the bootstrap and to make a difference. We can't keep hearing these negative things about the NFL players better get out there and play, and they better stop disrespecting their flag. You're not disrespecting your flag. You're disrespecting, you're looking at what the flag stands for. And if it stands for allowing black men to be killed in the streets, then you are standing up against the killings. So the killings has to stop. And they cannot have policemen out there on duty who are panicking and they're hitting the panic button. So it's been far too many brothers that have been killed. I don't see any organizations that are being developed on behalf of that. Any. They keep saying Black Lives Matter, but what are they doing to make a difference in the community? Maybe it's time that we should govern and manage our own race of people. Maybe it's time that anyone committing a sin or crime should be turned over to their own traditional race for them to jeopardize, for them to actually chastise. Maybe it's time. Maybe the men in blue may not have a heart for chastising them. Maybe they don't have the patience. Maybe they're hitting the panic button too much. Then we need to create a society within our own black community that will be able to be the judge and the jury and handle it fairly, rather than hitting the panic button to take a life away. I know you're concerned about that, Kaplan, because just as you see these young brothers killed in the street, there goes you or one of your loved ones. And we have to look at it like that. These NFL players are not being disrespectful, and they're not trying to bring down the flag. What they're trying to do is draw attention to the heartlessness and to the hatred and the racism that still perpetuates in our inner cities. Now, as an athlete myself, running the 50-yard dash and being a referee and going international to work with our youth in sports, basketball, and baseball, I say that women, it's time that you stand up and say something. There's far too many of our men who have been pushed out of school, who would like to return to school, who can't get there. We got to act on their behalf as advocates and get them back in school, because they pushed them into special ed as a way of pushing them through the cracks, and they're falling between the cracks, and they're falling into the system. And once they're in the system without a GED or a high school diploma, then their history is written, that they will have to roam the streets in order to eat and have food. But we can change that overnight. We can make a difference overnight. We can look at this situation from a different perspective. Don't just build these elaborate schools for white children to go to LeBrons, and don't just bring in a white staff of people to work there. Put your brothers to work. I can train them for you. I've been known to take an early childhood certificate program and prepare teachers. You can take those men off the streets and train them to become teachers and let them hold up your schools and make men into men, because only iron sharpens iron anyway. Most of your black boys that go to all white schools don't want to be there, and they end up dropping out. Now, LeBrons, don't let your school be a failure. You have got to have designed this school for your black race, because they're the ones that's failing. Other children that are Caucasian can go to any private school they want. They're making about $85,000 more than any household of black people. So if you're doing that for show, LeBrons, and you're not focusing in on the crisis with the African American, then everyone will see that as being something for show. But you can make a difference. You can make a difference and focus that school on African American males who dropped out of school. They're the ones that can't get back in the traditional public school, and not even the private schools. If you really want to make a change, LeBron, go out on Skid Row and see the black brothers that are out there and give them a voucher to go to your school and make a difference. Don't let anyone control you, because if you're letting someone control you to make yourself look like you're doing something for the black race, but in return you're really giving the white people's job and giving the white children a chance to skirt off of all your money, then I'm going to tell you the black people are going to call you out, LeBrons, and they're going to chastise you, and you're going to get whipped real good, because the black folks know if you're coming to the community and giving turkeys to them and specifically addressing their hardship. They know that. And they know you're not right now. Now, when you get on these shows, and these shows are supposed to address the real black issues in the hood, we gotta be real. We cannot be perpetrating, else the black people will call you out. I know they don't sign your paycheck. I know they're not the ones that give you those bonuses, but you do still want equality, and you want to have dignity from your own race. And the only way you can get that, you must zone into their problems, and you must be sincere about helping those black brothers who cannot help themselves. Now, Kaplan, all is not lost for you. You can start that organization whenever you get ready. And you can call those brothers from the east and west, south, north, and call them together to support you as you write your mission statement for helping those brothers who cannot help themselves and addressing their education problem and their employment problem. You still have a little dignity left and probably some money in the bank to do something with. Now make a real difference, and then go and address that song. Just like they took those statues down from the Confederate that insulted our black people during the slavery, we could also re-examine that song, the Star Spangled Banner. If there's some negative things in that particular lyrics, we can have those lyrics removed, even though it was designed for our Emancipation Proclamation. We could address that by saying that they were brutally talking against the slaves' enslavement, and we don't want to hear that. So we want it out of the song. We want it removed from the standard. It's very vital that you should understand that there's a wrong and a right way of doing this. And don't let them think that you're a bunch of men, unorganized, and they can come against you to remove you off the field and take your jobs. You can do something better than what you're doing. You can organize yourself, and you can create an organization that will address those men who have gone through changes and those men who have died needlessly. You can also set up a fund for their families to address them, because they're the ones back here still hurting. And somebody has got to address those family members who are not going to settle for Black Lives Matter, because Black Lives Matter can't really bring them back or do anything to make a difference in the hood community. It's very vital that you should understand the hood is going to get worse without employment. And it's going to be very, very difficult for most Black men coming out of school. And not to mention the ones coming back home out of being incarcerated. There needs to be programs created for those new ones that are returning home, a rites of passage, a ritual to return back to the community. There's so much that you young men can do, so much that you athletes can do to make a difference. Not only just to show in public that you're bending your knee, don't appear to be so passive. You have to take some aggressive steps to show that you're real men and that you're concerned about what happens to the Black men in a community when it comes to police brutality. There needs to be a town hall meeting to talk about how are we going to address having our own men in blue in our community that will walk the beat and oversee our own community, so that we won't have this abusiveness and racism carried out in our communities. We have got to look at that, and that has to be addressed. And I think that when you come to your senses to organize yourself to do something that is going to make a difference, not only in our metropolitan cities, but in our nation. Now, Obama got away with helping a few Black men out of prison. Maybe if he had started early enough, he could have did a lot more for the Black race. And I spoke too soon when I was waiting for him to do more for the Black race. It then became apparent to me that he was limited as to what he can do, and he didn't have the power after all. I know that they wouldn't give a Black man the full power. He was just window dressing, and he was not able to carry out everything that would address the conditions of the Black race. There are much problems that we have in our inner city. Right there in Chicago alone, there is serious problems, and they're crying out for help. And Chicago, in and of itself, is looking for a redeemer. And I think that the NFL players can be the clue to all of this. Maybe that's who God wants to use to make a difference, and to make a difference soon in the condition of our Black people. We can no longer go on suffering like we did in slavery. We can no longer go on seeing the abusiveness and the killing. And these are high-tech lynchings. We can no longer go on to digest this without saying something. Now, if we have a situation where the NFL players want to help, they need to come to the inner city communities, and they need to strike up a conversation and a meeting. And we need to start the dialogue soon, because just doing these things in the community, being on your barbershop floor talking about the inner city, when you're out of touch with the inner city and you're not familiar with what goes on in the inner city, then you got to get zoned back in. You just cannot fake it and make people think you know what the pulse of the people is in the African American community. You cannot. You must rub shoulders with them periodically so you'll know exactly what the pulse of the people are. What are their needs? And what can you do to make a difference? Now, LeBrons, you and Kaplan are not being stopped. And they're not pulling you over. And they're not claiming you're just an average Black man. Because, see, you can pull out the fact that you're an NFL player and you'll get a bye. But there's a lot of other brothers that Kaplan is seeing that are not getting that by, and his heart goes out to them. And he's asking, will someone take a knee with me? Now, that's a passive step, Kaplan. You got to move to the next plan. What is your next plan? I'd like to hear from you in the news about what your next plan is, but we need to plan something soon and find out how mothers can help you to put together and organize a plan that will make a lifetime difference and not just one temporarily. You've been listening to Maddie Harvey's Baby Sister. Thank you so much for listening to me on this patriotic day where we are looking at laborers, those laborers in the profession who labor, and you athletes who get out there and give us entertainment. I want to thank you so much, but we can do more with all of your pull and your ability to make a difference financially. We can do a lot more, and there are mothers to help you like myself and others and teachers. We are making ourselves available to help you to structure something that is more concrete, that will send a greater message about the fact that we're dissatisfied with the way our race is being treated. We're dissatisfied with the way that wealth is being distributed. And athletes, I know you're probably saying, well, we got most of that. We got all the income. Well, that's great. Let's help our brothers on the streets just get a fraction of what you're getting and put them to work so they can find employment, so they won't have to be those that are being picked up by the cops for petty and small crimes, but they can get on their feet and get over the grain house. Thank you so much for listening to me on this particular holiday, and I hope that you have had a great holiday. And to those NFL players, I want you to know that the teachers are behind you. I am behind you as one of the teachers, and I do believe that there's more we can do in our urban cities and in our metropolitan cities. There's much more we can do in organizing ourselves to get ready to pull these men up by the bootstrap. So I want to thank you so much for listening. And you've been listening to Maddie Harvey's Baby Sister. Straight ahead and into the future, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Straight ahead and into the future, Garland, Texas. Straight ahead and into the future, Dallas, Texas. Straight ahead and into the future, Gary, Indiana. Straight ahead and into the future, Avon, Indiana. And straight ahead and into the future, Indianapolis, Indiana. Oh, Dabo and Baba Booey to y'all. Peace.